Hey folks, Malforian here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about Star Trek Infinite. It is Devlog 4, a Trek story. And I'm going to be honest guys, I'm not going to be keeping you long today because this dev diary was exceedingly short and had no gameplay or mechanics talk in it at all. It is quite interesting, but it is a very short one. But I did see on Reddit of all places, one of the developers or one of the community team basically said, hey, there's stuff coming next week. We obviously can't talk about it. It does look like potentially next week we might get a couple of devlogs or something like that. I'd be surprised if this is the last one as the game is out in less than a week. I kind of think they go longer than 4 and have a few of them at least break down like each faction's mission tree or something like that. That's what I would expect to see. So if they do that, I'll be doing a video on them as always. But anyway, we're going to get quickly into the devlog and we'll just see what they're going to talk about. And as I say, not a lot really. The first bit is about canon, basically what Star Trek is going to be in the game itself, which they've kind of covered before, but basically saying everyone knows there's like the alpha lore and then there's the beta lore. You know, the shows and the movie are seen as like canonical lore, and then things like books, video games, they're not up there with the TV shows, but they're like one step down. And they're basically saying, although there are these different levels of canon, they usually follow the same kind of things. You know, they do follow that Star Trek sensibilities. The universe generally is kept in the same kind of fashion at least, or if it's not, it's usually like an alternate universe or something like that. They don't tend to mess around with the main universe that much. There is obviously some exceptions to that rule, but generally that is how the show and the books and the video games come along. You know, if you see a Star Trek game, you see a Star Trek book, you know it's Star Trek generally, just by a couple of pages read, or you just see some graphics and you know it's Star Trek. They're using that as basically a jump-off point for these stories that you're going to see in the game, because everyone has their favorite episode, and those people are going to want to see that episode in the game. Like for me, Yesterday's Enterprise or Cause and Effect, they're some of my favorite TNG episodes. I'd love them to be in the game, but obviously the game is not just the Federation, and I think the problem is that obviously a lot of Star Trek is just the Federation, and then kind of tangentially linked other stories. So Worf with obviously like the Duras trying to take over the Klingon Empire. And they're going to get to that later. You know, what happens if they did take over the Klingon Empire? Maybe we will see that in the game itself. So just some interesting like how they're thinking about retelling stories in the game itself versus what you see in the TV shows and things like that. And then the themes of Star Trek, we all know what the themes are, you know, trying to spread knowledge, knowing about all aspects of the human condition, as they say here, learning to understand to live with each other no matter what differences we have seen, as, you know, the Federation generally tries to do in the show. There have been some times when that's not the case, but generally, you know, I think Star Trek is that. It's about bringing empathy, hope, again, as they mention here, to the world, and just trying to, you know, put a positive spin on what the future could be in some ways. You know, if you ignore the Borg stuff, in general, goes quite well, except for the Borg stuff. Don't do that stuff, that's bad. And then basically the last bit here is just about your story, giving us the ability to retell our story, although the missions and the stories aren't going to be like railroaded. You aren't going to have to play the Federation as the Federation is generally seen. There are going to be ways to split away from that. Do you want to change how things happened? And things like that in there. And as we've seen with this mission tree before, I think this was in the first dev diary, you can see here, you can grow the Federation or you can empower Section 31. And if you go down that side, it looks like you go, not like a Terran Empire full route, but you can do that kind of like Dark Federation. Not those ideals. They're all about conquering land. Kind of like, not Klingon-esque, but the alternate bearded universe was basically, what if the Federation was the Klingons, basically, wasn't it? Let's be honest. It was all about just conquering people, fighting people, backstabbing people to get in power and all of that. So a bit of the Romulans as well, I suppose. It was glorious episodes, let's be honest. Some of the best episodes out there. So it looks like you can maybe take the Federation down that path if you want to. And then as it says here, they went back to the canon of the shows and things like that and looked at what if possibilities. So these alternate paths where events happened in the show, and if something different had happened, it would have been a different story. So, you know, what if the House of Duras did take over the Klingon Empire? What if that was all foiled and the Romulan side of it actually was successful and they were able to get people into power that they wanted to? And how would that have affected the universe of Star Trek? So it looks like we are going to have maybe event chains, and I would have liked to have seen this, like an example of an event chain if that didn't happen and if it did happen or something like that. I think that would have been a good way to finish this week's dev diary. So it looks like we are going to get events based on like pinnacle episodes, like the Duras ones. Maybe we'll see some kind of Locutus of Borg thing, maybe. Who knows? And you'll be able to go down like a what if scenario if you decided to. And as I say, it would have been nice to see that, at least one example of that. It would have been pretty cool. And then one of the last bits here actually says is, while some things are destined to happen, like invasions from the other side of the galaxy, as we saw last week, they confirmed that the Borg are the like crisis event at the end of the game. Very much like, I think they're called Fallen Empires in Stellaris, where they kind of reawaken and just go crazy, trying to take things over generally. And you've got to band together or just try hold out as much as you can and things like that. So it looks like they are going to spawn off in one side of the galaxy, like an invasion, and then you've got to basically hold off against the Borg. And that's kind of like the final frontier, I guess, of a playthrough. If you survive that, you can carry on. And if you fall, well, that's kind of how it ended and things like that. Think very much of, if you played Crusader Kings 3 and you've never played Stellaris, think of like the Mongols. When the Mongols spawn and they just go rampaging across the map, that's basically what's going to happen, but with the Borg. And it'd be interesting to see what they do. Do you like fight against like Borgified ships and things like that? I wonder how much it actually changes things, especially if you take over those planets again. Are they like Borg planets, utterly destroyed basically? It'd be interesting to see. Again, it would have been nice to see some of that information. But anyway, on that note, extremely quick coverage. What I will leave us with today is they are talking about canon, about favourite episodes. Let me know in the comments down below. What's your favourite episode? Which one would you love to see in here? And maybe which episodes would you think would fit well for the other factions? Because obviously, like the Cardassians, we've got some DS9 episodes. We've obviously got the famous There Are Five Lights or whatever it was with Picard. It'd be interesting if you play as the Cardassians. Can you like capture a captain and then manage to like convert them and things like that and turn them into a double agent? That would be pretty cool if you could do that. So yeah, let me know what your favorite episode is and what you would like to see it kind of replayed as in the game itself. But on that note, we'll leave it there for today. As I said, they did mention they've got stuff coming next week, so we'll see what they talk about, and I'll do some videos up to launch. And then I'm thinking of doing a live stream on launch day, so let me know as well. Which faction would you like me to play as? I'm probably thinking the Federation, just because first playthrough, keep it vanilla, let's see how the game plays, but if people are very passionate about another faction, I'm happy to try that out instead. But yeah, we'll leave it there for today. Thanks as always. I'll see you in the next one.